Tomlin Tuesday. Big Deke news. Basically, everything we've known about Aaron Rodgers' left wrist injury still holds true. Tomlin says he has a chance to play this week. It's not going to require surgery. It's all about the pain tolerance and how his hand is going to be wrapped or casted and if he can handle it or not. And this was Tomlin today, basically just talking about this whole quarterback situation, how it's going to play out, how he's going to decipher who gets the reps during practice and how much that's going to weigh into whether Rodgers or Mason starts. So here you go.
Just to be clear, so you're not ruling out Aaron, the possibility he could play?
No, I'm not.
Would he be the first day that he was tested? Is that kind of where you are?
That's just what I have in my mind. There hadn't been anything. I know he's not working tomorrow, but certainly I assume it's going to be a little later in the week. And in the meanwhile, it'll give us an opportunity to really get solid with a plan and physical preparation around the other two.
Like to see him practice at all? I mean, is he going to have to practice a little bit to be available?
Yeah, functionality is a component of it. I don't need it for my comfort, but I certainly need it for functionality, and functionality is a major component of whether or not he gets an opportunity this week. Of communication and conversation that we have, it's about stabilizing it. It's about making sure that he can manage the pain. That doesn't appear to be an issue. Again, having been around him, and then functionality. And so those are the variables.
How much input is he going to have versus you versus the doctors on decision-wise?
It's his body, so certainly he's going to be a component of the discussion.
So again, really nothing new. This is just going to be a day at a time type of thing as we see how the rest of the week plays out. Doesn't look like Rodgers is going to practice early in the week. And if he doesn't practice at all, I guess that's not going to affect Tomlin's decision too much as long as Rodgers can play quarterback at full capacity. Like the wrist injury isn't going to limit him from taking snaps or being a limited quarterback somehow, some way. Because if that's the case, I think the smart decision would be to go with Mason. But if it's just really a pain tolerance thing, and obviously Rodgers is able to handle the pain, he wanted to go back out there against the Bengals at halftime, and obviously he's played through injuries. Basically anything but major injuries throughout the course of his career, he has gutted it out and has figured out ways to manage it. So it looks like he really wants to play in this game, and that should be something in the Steelers' favor because it's against the Bears, his old NFC North rival. We know the whole thing. He owns the Bears. It's basically like when Big Ben played the Browns. That's Aaron Rodgers' track record against the Bears. Whenever he goes up against them, he wins like 95 to 96% of the time. So there's that in the Steelers' favor for if Rodgers plays. But this is a whole new Bears team, and we'll go over that later this week. Part of me still wouldn't mind seeing Mason Rudolph for another week or two. That's all I'm saying. Let Rodgers heal up as best he can. And I mentioned this yesterday. With a fracture, I don't think it's one of those things where it's going to automatically feel a ton better in a week or two. Usually it's like 4 to 6 weeks for a fracture to fully heal. But if it can get casted up right and everything and he's still fully functional and he doesn't really have the risk of re-injuring it or making it worse, then sure, get out there. And we appreciate the want to for being out there because showcases leadership, showcases you're all about the team. You're willing to put your body at risk, your body at harm's way for your brothers, for your teammates out there. So like this is all a good thing that Rodgers wants to play. I wouldn't mind seeing this offense for another week or two under Mason Rudolph. That's all. Just to make sure that the offense isn't better with Mason, right? That's all. Maybe we could say is or isn't better. I just want to double check because that second half with Mason, there was some spark to it. And I get it. The backup comes in middle of the game. That happens at times. The defense isn't prepped for the backup. But I don't know, man. Mason hung tight in the pocket. Offensive line blocked pretty damn good for him. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think the offensive line should have blocked better for Rodgers in that first half. But what if it actually has to do a little bit with the quarterback and how he plays the position? Because Rodgers sometimes can skirt around in the pocket a little bit, throw some of those fadeaway passes, whereas Mason doesn't do that. I think Rodgers if he wants to play, he's good to play from a clearance standpoint and isn't limited, then he should play. He was named the starting quarterback for a reason. This is Aaron Rodgers still, and I think he's played good this year. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that Rodgers has been playing bad this year or has been the issue. I just saw something with this offense and Mason Rudolph that I'm just wondering, could this offense maybe reach another level with him? Because that's the best we've seen from this offense in the last few weeks. Rodgers has had his high points, right? The 4 touchdowns, Bengals, 4 touchdowns, Jets. But there's still been some ups and downs and just us getting by, just being average to above average. With Rodgers being hurt, it could be a good opportunity to see what this thing could look like with Mason. Now, I think ultimately Tomlin is going to lean on Rodgers with this one, and Rodgers feels good, all that stuff. Even if he doesn't practice fully or anything like that, it's going to be Rodgers, man. It is. Just because of that respect that Tomlin and Rodgers have for each other, that whole relationship. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Mason this week. I really don't, if my money's on it. But let me know your thoughts down below. Who do you want to start this week? Who do you think should start? Given the information at hand right now, Rodgers most likely not going to practice, is going to have the cast on. Seeing what Mason did in that second half of last week, what do you think it should be? If Rodgers can play, it should be Rodgers. You don't want the waffling. You don't want the back and forth. He's the starter. You don't want any controversy, anything like that. But if you want Rodgers to rest up a little bit more, make sure that wrist is as good as possible for when he does come back. Again, I'm not opposed to seeing Mason for another week or two just to see what that looks like. Just to make sure that offense isn't what we saw in the second half, or isn't sustainable, or maybe it is sustainable. That's what I mean. I want to see. I want to know. I want to know what that could be. But that's that. Tomlin also talked about some injuries and who could be back this week, and one of those guys is Darius Slay. And he was asked whether or not Darius Slay is going to retake his starting cornerback position.
Mike, if Slay is healthy, does he step back in as a starter, or will you stick with Pierre?
Yeah, he steps back in and plays. Certainly. We're certainly going to continue to play James. He's deserving of that. But if healthy, Slay's going to play.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
It just doesn't make sense. Just doesn't. Outside of you giving respect to the name and Darius Slay's veteran status, and maybe you could even argue the contract too. But is that really what we should be doing? No, we've seen that not work in our favor in the past when we've done shit like that. Like playing Devin Bush over Robert Spillane. We kept playing Devin Bush because of his first-round status, the name, the contract over Robert Spillane, and you saw how disastrous that was for a couple seasons. Can we not do it again? I feel like I'm probably missing another example or two of that. But James Pierre's playing good. When has our secondary looked the best? And I talked about this the last show or two. Our secondary has looked the best. Our defense has looked the best over these last 2 or 3 weeks with this cornerback and safety combination, right? James Pierre getting time. Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey back at safety, Kyle Duggar at safety. Let's stick with that until it doesn't work anymore, because when Darius Slay has been out there, he's been getting cooked left and right, and our secondary has looked the worst. Now, is it all on Darius Slay? No. But at the same time, why can't we reward a dude for playing at a pretty high level and keep giving him snaps and seeing if he can still do it until he can't? Because Darius Slay's still going to be there, right? You can make the switch at any time, but why not ride with the hot hand? And right now, the hot hand is James Pierre. I can't believe I'm saying it, right? James Pierre in 2025 is a pretty damn good cornerback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a guy that we're relying on and is making plays and is someone that we don't want to bench right now for an all-pro borderline Hall of Fame guy in Darius Slay. Like, Pierre just had a hell of a game against 2 top 15 to 20 receivers in this league, and one of those guys, Jamar Chase, is a top 2 to 3 receiver, right now. T. Higgins, obviously in that 15 to 20 range, but Pierre and JPJ held him in check. And as I said before, going into this matchup against Cincy, it's not like they were getting held in check by all the other teams that they were going up against. We obviously witnessed the debacle on Thursday Night Football with us, but then the next two games, they're putting up 400-plus yards total offense, 30, 35-plus points up on the board, and they look like an explosive offense. Against us, 12 points outside of that opening drive, didn't have a touchdown the whole game. James Pierre, pass deflections, sticky in coverage. I don't know, man. Like I don't think it's rocket science. Just keep riding with James Pierre. I don't think it's that complicated. The only explanation would be is that Tomlin's just gonna lean on the veteran, the guy with the name, Darius, the guy that has the higher contract, the guy that has more cachet, the bigger resume at this point. But who's playing better right now? And that's James Pierre. Not saying Slay can't still help out the defense in certain spots and dime packages and passing situations, and maybe even down the line, if the Pierre comeback story or the Pierre redemption story starts to fall apart. But why not wait and see until that actually happens before you pull the plug too quick? And you know what? I did just think of another situation where Tomlin may have stuck with the veteran a little bit too long because of the name and him having a bigger resume than the guy that was backing him up. And you could maybe argue the end of last year with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Those last 5 or 6 games, we just stuck with Russell Wilson, even though the play was taking a big decline, whereas maybe you could argue Justin Fields was the more dynamic player and could have given us a spark late in the season and into the playoffs, because Fields also did play good whenever he got the opportunity early in the season. In those first 6 games, it seemed like him and Arthur Smith had good rapport together. But yeah, there might even be another example or two that's out there if you guys want to drop them in the comments, where we just kind of arbitrarily went with a guy who's playing worse but had more years in the league or has the higher contract, or maybe we invested a higher draft pick in him, stuck with them despite their poor play over the guy that was beneath them on the depth chart. And it ended up costing us. And I feel like this might be one of those situations. I'm not too thrilled about what Tomlin said here. Now, maybe he's just saying the right thing for the press conference, and when the snap counts finish up in this Sunday's game, Pierre will out-snap Slay. So we'll wait and see on that, because it's not like Tomlin hasn't deceived the media before in past Tomlin Tuesdays. But last thing. Actually, do we need anything else? No, that might be it for today's show. That might be it. We got some other talking points I could bring up tomorrow. Some Darnell Washington stuff, maybe even Roman Wilson. Will Howard maybe getting some snaps. This goes back to the Rodgers Mason thing. Mason's going to be practicing early in the week. And with Will Howard only being literally a play away from getting legitimate playing time in a regular season game, he might be getting some work.
Mike, with Will Howard now potentially closer to playing time, will he get any reps with the first team this week in practice?
We'll see. We'll see where the week goes.
And that's something Tomlin did say that we've been doing with Mason in all these weeks, with Mason being the primary backup, because Mason, with Rodgers being the starter, was always only a play away. But we were giving him some work, giving him some reps, and that's something, it's funny because it all goes hand in hand with just kind of some of the around the league talk with the Browns and Shedeur Sanders, because Stefanski had a similar situation with Dylan Gabriel, who's the starter, but their backup, Shedeur Sanders, he wasn't giving Shedeur Sanders any reps or any just sort of preparation for some of these games in case Dylan Gabriel went down. And it's good to see at least the Steelers are doing their due diligence and being a little bit more prepared than, the dysfunctional Browns, in case of emergencies like that took place last week against the Bengals with Rodgers going down in the middle of the game. At least we had stuff for Mason that, he was ready for, knew what the playbook or the game plan was going into this game, and also Arthur Smith, credit to him for tailoring stuff to Mason and what he liked.
How do you balance game planning with the quarterback up in the air, tailoring it to Mason or to Aaron?
It's not anything to balance. We've gone through nine or so games, catering it to Aaron and his talents, and are gaining certain traction there about the schematics, and all the while we've been gaining some perspective about what's best for Mason. As a matter of fact, each and every week, he kind of goes through things within the plan that are really comfortable for him. And so it won't be our first week at it. Certainly will be our first week operationally, but the process, you go through that just about every week as you prepare a starter and a potential backup in terms of how to best highlight their talents and so that the unit can move regardless of who's playing, particularly when they have different skill sets.
I don't think it's a stretch. I don't think it's this really big ordeal for Will Howard to be getting the same treatment, with Rodgers most likely not practicing on Wednesday, Thursday at least, to be giving Will Howard some reps, doing just some things that may be more tailored toward him, just in case. You never know. But that's it for today's show. We'll get into some other stuff tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling. Peace.